She came at me fast, phone-up voice already sharp. "You're digging up my path." Her words hit harder than the gravel flying off the backhoe. I had the county permit clipped to my board boundary tag shining plain as daylight. But she wasn't there to look. She was there to accuse. Within minutes, she'd blasted an email to the whole subdivision, called in backup, and planted a bright sign that screamed, "Unauthorized digging," like we were criminals instead of county road crews. I knew this wasn't just confusion, it was a takeover attempt. That's when I decided to let the cameras roll. We were out there fixing the community road same way we had 100 times before trench open culvert ready to drop asphalt truck rumbling somewhere behind us. The air still carried that crisp early morning bite, the kind that mixes with diesel and wet earth. I stepped down from the backhoe, thermos in hand, boots sinking a little into the soft shoulder. Carter was already unrolling the survey tape along the ditch line. "If we keep pace, we'll beat that 10 o'clock mark," he said, scratching the back of his neck under his cap. "Yeah," I answered, adjusting the body cam clipped to my vest. It made a faint beep as the battery check cycled. I glanced toward the brush where a thin metal tag winked in the morning sun, HCRW17, half lost in weeds. County boundary. The kind of tiny detail people never notice until it matters. We'd barely settled into the rhythm of work when I heard the quick, uneven clack of someone marching down the asphalt. I turned, expecting a jogger or maybe a dog walker from the subdivision. Instead, it was her. Melinda Cross, HOA chair, self-appointed guardian of everything from mailbox heights to mulch color. I'd seen her face before on the bulletin board at the subdivision gate, smiling like she was running for office. Now that same face was flushed eyes wide, phone already raised like a badge. "Hey," she shouted, "you can't dig up my path?" Carter froze mid-stride, looking at me like, "Here we go." I lifted my hands slightly, palms out, keeping my voice even. "Ma'am, this is county jurisdiction. We're improving drainage on the community road." "Not today," she snapped, stepping closer and angling her phone at the open trench. "Not on my path." Behind her, 2 early morning walkers slowed, curious. A pickup rolled past driver, leaning his elbow out the window to stare. Bad start for a smooth job. "Ma'am," I said again, "this isn't the trail. The HOA boundary ends right over there." I nodded to the brush line where the metal tag glinted. She didn't look, or didn't want to. "You don't have authority here," she said. "I know the maps. I manage the maps. And I'm calling the board." Carter put his hands on his hips. "Here we go," he muttered under his breath. She spun away from us, pacing a tight circle while dialing. "Yes, it's happening again," she said into the phone, her voice sharp enough for the whole street to hear. "They're tearing up the path. No, they didn't ask permission. Yes, I'm standing right here. Get over here now." I felt heat rise in my neck, the kind that comes from knowing you're being blamed for something you didn't do. But after 27 years on county roads, I'd learned not to take the bait. Let the yelling burn itself out. Let the facts do the talking. "You want me to start the culvert set?" Carter asked quietly. "Not till she backs up a few feet," I said. "Last thing we need is her slipping near the trench." Melinda whipped back toward us like she'd heard it. "Don't you move that machine. Don't touch anything until the board arrives. This is documented." She waved her phone in a tight arc, filming everything me the trench, the clipboard tucked under my arm. She took a sudden step forward. Before I even knew what she was reaching for, she snatched the clipboard right out of my hand and shoved it inches from her phone, zooming in on the permit like she was hunting for a smoking gun. "Give that back," I said firmly. No yelling, no stepping toward her. Just a flat line in my voice. She held it 2 long seconds more before thrusting it back into my chest. "I'm not done with this," she said. "The board will be here in 5 minutes. You'd better have a very good explanation for why you're destroying our trail. It's not Carter started, but I lifted a hand to stop him. Let her talk. Let her spin it however she wanted. None of it changed the facts, the boundary tag, the permit, the work order sitting on the seat of the backhoe. But facts only matter when someone is willing to look at them. She stepped back and planted herself in the middle of the road like she was staking a claim. A couple more residents drifted out from their driveways, coffee mugs in hand, drawn by the noise. Great. An audience. I looked again at the metal tag half hidden in the weeds. A quiet reminder that real lines existed whether people believed in them or not. Every county crew has its own HOA Karen story. I thought sliding the clipboard under my arm where it belonged. I just didn't know this one was mine. By the time we broke for breakfast, my name had already made it into somebody's subject line. Carter slid into the booth across from me at the diner, dropping his phone on the formica with a little too much force. The place smelled like bacon fat and burnt coffee, same as it had for the last 30 years. A line of old boys at the counter argued quietly about rain totals and half-ton pickups, their ball caps faded in different shades of work. "You're gonna love this," Carter said. I took a sip from my chipped mug. That's never true when you say it like that. He turned the screen so I could see. An email header glared back at me. From Meadow Ridge Estates, HOA, subject line in bold. County crew digging up her path. Urgent. I read the first lines, mind catching on the phrasing like a boot on rebar. Residents. It began this morning. A county crew began digging up her path without HOA approval. The community trail you enjoy is under immediate threat. We need you to stay alert and be ready to protect what's ours. I set my mug down harder than I meant to, coffee sloshing over my fingers. So now I'm digging up her path. Huh? I said. Good to know I've been demoted from road tech to vandal. Carter snorted. At least they spelled county right. The waitress topped off our cups without asking. "Y'all working up by the subdivision this morning?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Apparently we're starring in the HOA newsletter." She rolled her eyes. "Figures. My sister lives over there. They sent her a warning because her wind chimes were visually disruptive. You boys be careful." I wiped my hand on a napkin, that tight coil starting again in my chest. Not full-on anger, just that familiar pressure of knowing somebody was rewriting the story before you even finished living it. My phone buzzed on the table screen, lighting up with a name that made my shoulders drop half an inch in relief. Grant calling. I answered. "Morning, boss." He didn't bother with small talk. "Hank, you and Carter still at the Ridge job?" "Yeah." "Took a breakfast break. Why?" "I just got forwarded a lovely little email," he said, paper rustling on his end. I could picture him in his office, glasses down his nose, the county seal crooked on the wall behind him. "Apparently, you're digging up her path." "Good you saw it too," I said. For a minute I thought I dreamed being on county right-of-way. He let out a breath that was half sigh, half laugh. "Look, I've dealt with that board before. They love bylaws more than they love air, but they don't own that shoulder. We do. The permit's good, the work order is clean, and HCRW 17 hasn't moved in the last 40 years. I glanced out the diner window past the parked pickups and toward the subdivision entrance where their fancy stone sign sat like it had grown out of the ground. Somewhere beyond that, the little metal tag was still waiting in the weeds. "So, what's the play?" I asked. "Same as always," he said. "You keep everything documented. I'll swing by after lunch. If they want to talk, they can talk to county, not just a guy in a vest. Copy that. And Hank," he added, "don't argue with them. You're not there to win a shouting match. Just stand firm. The permit speaks louder than whoever's yelling at 9 in the morning. Understood." I hung up and stared at the dark screen for a second, letting his words settle. I'd been on enough jobs to know there's a big difference between going back out there alone and going back knowing your supervisor's already seen the paperwork and still has your back. Carter broke a piece of toast in half and popped it into his mouth. So Grant saw it too. Yeah, I said. He's coming out after lunch. Says we stick to the script. Document everything. Let the permit do the talking. So? No telling her the path isn't hers, he asked. Oh, I still might, I said. Just into the camera this time. We paid up and stepped back into the chill. The sky had gone from pale blue to that washed-out white that promises either rain or more drama. At the end of the lot, our dump truck idled exhaust ghosting in the air. As we pulled up to the subdivision entrance, it was clear the email had done its job. 2 HOA board members stood shoulder to shoulder at the narrow section of road arms, folded clipboards in hand like they'd been born with them. One was the treasurer, if I remembered the bulletin board right. The other I'd only ever seen at the July 4th cookout complaining about parking. The treasurer stepped out farther into our lane, forcing the dump truck to stop short. He held up a palm like he was directing traffic at a parade. That's new, Carter said. Human barricades. I parked the pickup on the shoulder and got out. The body cam bounced against my chest. I reached up and tapped the button. It gave a soft beep, red LED blinking to life. The treasurer jabbed his clipboard toward the trench line. You're not bringing that truck in here until we sort this out, he said. You're destroying association property. Morning, I said. This is Hawthorne County right-of-way. We're fixing the community road. Got a permit, got a work order, got 20 years of drainage complaints to back it up. The other board member, a woman in a bright track jacket, held up her phone. We have a notice that says you're damaging the trail. The email went out this morning. We've already had residents calling. Yeah, I said. I saw the email. Problem is, it's wrong. She blinked like no one had ever said that to her before. Carter leaned on the truck's front fender, not saying anything, just watching. A couple more cars slowed as they passed curious faces turned toward the little standoff at the gate. This is how a story spreads in a town like ours. One email, 2 people blocking a truck, and a handful of drivers who can't wait to tell someone about it when they get to work. My phone vibrated again. I dug it out of my pocket, saw Grant's name. I turned a little away from the board members, but kept the camera angled to catch everything. Yeah, Grant? His voice came steady over the line. Hank. I'm looking at that email again. It's labeling county land as her path. That's a problem for them, not you. Keep your permit ready. Don't argue the map. Just stand firm on jurisdiction. They're standing in front of the truck, I said quietly, telling us we can't move. Fine, he said. Then they're on record doing it. If this goes sideways, I want it all on video. I'll be there after lunch. Until then, no raised voices, no touching anybody, no backing down. Clear. Clear, I said. I ended the call and slipped the phone back in my pocket, feeling something shift inside me. The anger was still there, but now it had rails to run on. A direction. A process. I adjusted the clipboard under my arm so the permit page faced up visible to the body cam. The wind tugged at the corners. If they want to fight, I thought looking at the 2 board members blocking a county truck like they owned the asphalt, they'll get one, but on the record. By 9:30, the job site didn't look like a road project anymore. It looked like a committee meeting no one had invited us to. The full HOA board had arrived in wave sedans and crossovers nosed along the curb hazard lights, blinking like they were official vehicles. Now they clustered near the cluster mailboxes, a semicircle of clipboards, and crossed arms between us and the subdivision's walking path. I stood at the edge of the trench boots on solid ground, the clipboard tucked tight under my elbow. Our trench cut ran along the shoulder of the community road just where the county plan said it should. 10 feet over the concrete path curved behind the houses, clean and untouched. Didn't matter. He's still digging up my path. Melinda's voice cut through everything: the backhoe, idle, the mutter of a lawn crew mowing 2 houses down, even the hum of a leaf blower in the next yard. She pushed forward from the little crowd of board members, phone held high. "Look at this. This is exactly what I warned you about." A couple of residents had joined the board, now pajama pants and hoodies thrown over sleep phones, out filming like they'd stumbled onto breaking news. "Ma'am, we haven't touched your path," I said. I forced my voice to stay level, not loud. "This trench is on the community road shoulder, county right-of-way." She scoffed. "It's all the same to us. That trail is part of our amenities. You're cutting right beside it. This whole area is HOA property." I stepped back from the trench and walked toward the brush line, keeping my hands visible, the body cam's red light blinking slowly on my chest. The weeds tugged at my jeans as I bent down. "There," I said, pushing aside a spray of dry grass. The small metal tag flashed in the morning light, HCRW17, stamped into aluminum and bolted to a short steel post. I tapped it with 2 fingers. "This is the line." Melinda didn't move. Her eyes never left the trench. One of the board members, a tall guy in a golf shirt with the HOA logo stitched on the chest, cleared his throat. "We have our own survey," he said. "Our map shows this as part of the common area. The path, the verge, the slope, it's all under association maintenance." "Your map isn't the one I work from," I replied. I held up the clipboard just enough for my camera to catch the sheet on top. The county seal sat there in blue, stamped over permit. Community road drainage improvement. This is. Melinda's eyes snapped to it. "What does that say?" she demanded, marching toward me. "It says Hawthorne County is responsible for this section," I said. "We're fixing the community road, not your flower beds, not your path. The road." She didn't ask to see the clipboard this time. She just reached out and yanked it from under my arm, wrapping her fingers around the metal clip like she owned it too. Papers bent as she dragged it closer to her phone. "Hey," Carter said sharply from behind me. I didn't move. She held the clipboard up, phone lens inches from the seal. "Get this," she told someone behind her. "I want the permit number, the job code, all of it. We'll see what legal thinks about this." "Careful," I said. "Those pages are the only copy I've got on site." She gave a tight little laugh. "Maybe that's part of the problem." The board clustered closer, peering over her shoulder. I could see the words even from where I stood. Community road, right-of-way drainage improvement, clear as day. But they were hunting for something else, some tiny phrase they could twist into unauthorized or non-compliant. After a long moment, Melinda shoved the clipboard back at me. The metal jaw caught my thumb on the way, stinging. The top edge was creased now, pages slightly warped where her grip had bent them. The prop was still intact, but it wasn't pristine anymore. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "This board will be filing a formal complaint with the county manager. You are disrupting residents' use of the trail. You are damaging our property. And until this is resolved, you are not moving that equipment 1 more inch." I slid the clipboard back against my chest, feeling the new crease under my fingertips. The corner of the permit fluttered in the breeze, catching the red blink of the camera. "Ma'am, with respect, you don't have the authority to stop a county work order," I said. "You can complain all you want, but this road still floods every spring. We're here to fix that." A lawn crew rider mower buzzed past on the far side of the street, the guy on it turning his head to watch. To our left, the cluster mailboxes sat under their little shingled roof. A corkboard beside them covered in HOA flyers, pool hours, garage sale dates, a printout of the very email Carter showed me at breakfast. "County crew digging up her path. Urgent." I looked at that line again and felt something sharpen behind my ribs. I reached up and tapped the body cam button with my knuckle. It gave a louder click, then a clear beep as it marked a new clip. A few heads snapped toward the sound. Lines exist for a reason, I said more to the camera than to her. Road path, mine yours. We don't get to pretend they're wherever we feel like on a Tuesday morning. A couple of the older residents shifted their weight at that, glancing from the trench to the untouched concrete path behind them. One man in a gray sweatshirt frowned at the corkboard like he was seeing the email for the first time. Melinda's jaw tightened. "You can quote all the cute one-liners you want," she said. "You're still on association land. You're still digging up my path." I gave a slow breath out through my nose. "No, ma'am," I answered. "We're fixing the community road." The tall board member leaned toward her. "Should I call the sheriff now?" he murmured, not quite quiet enough. "Or wait until they move the equipment again?" She didn't hesitate. "Call him," she said. "If the county wants a fight over jurisdiction, they can explain themselves to law enforcement." On camera. He stepped away, phone already at his ear. Melinda turned back to me, eyes bright with a mix of anger and something else certainty. "Fine," she said. "Let's see what the sheriff thinks." By late morning, the whole thing had turned into a sideshow. Somewhere between the first complaint and the second phone call, the HOA had decided to make it official. When I came back from checking the far end of the trench there, it was hammered into the ground right off the concrete path, a folding A-frame sign with plastic legs and a laminated insert that still smelled like fresh ink. Path closed due to unauthorized digging. They'd propped it so it leaned toward the road like it was accusing us. Carter whistled low. "You see that?" "Hard to miss," I said. The words sat wrong in my gut. Not because they were loud, but because they were confident. Like the decision had already been made about who was right and who was wrecking things. My phone buzzed again. "Grant." I answered. "Yeah, I'm 10 minutes out," he said. "Deputies coming within the hour. They logged the call as a civil dispute." I heard his turn signal clicking faintly under his voice. "Let's settle this the right way, Hank. You got everything ready?" I looked at the open tailgate of the county truck. We'd turned it into a makeshift desk permit, clipped to a clean board work order laid flat beside it, a printed map of Hawthorne County right-of-way with HCRW 17 circled in red. My body cam was still blinking. Carter had set his phone up on the dash to catch a wide shot of the road and the HOA sign. "Yeah," I said. "Paperwork's lined up and cameras are rolling." "Good," Grant said. "No arguing, no stepping across any lines, literal or otherwise. When the deputy gets there, we let him ask the questions. You just answer straight." "Copy," I replied. I hung up and leaned both hands on the tailgate for a second. The metal was warm from the sun. It felt solid under my palms, steadier than I did. You don't spend this long in public work without getting used to being the bad guy in somebody's story now and then. But this felt different. This time it wasn't just a grumpy homeowner. It was a whole structure, a board, a newsletter, a sign in the ground declaring what we were doing unauthorized before anyone with authority had even looked at the permit. Engines hummed behind me. When I turned, Melinda was leading a small procession down from the cul-de-sac, more than 10 residents easy. Some in work clothes, some in yoga gear, a couple still in slippers. They fanned out along the grass between the mailboxes and the path phones up, sunglasses on. "There!" Melinda said loudly, pointing to the trench. "You see it! They're tearing up our path." A murmur rolled through the crowd. "That's the road shoulder," Carter muttered beside me. I straightened up and walked a few steps closer, stopping well short of the sign. "Morning, folks," I said. "Just so we're clear, your path is over there." I pointed to the unbroken concrete curving behind the houses. "We haven't cut it, chipped it, or touched it." A woman with a stroller frowned. "But the email said—" "The email was wrong," I said. What we're working on is the community road, county jurisdiction. Melinda clapped her hands once a sharp crack. Don't let them confuse you, she said. This whole area is part of the amenity. Without this verge, the trail is unsafe. They're tearing up what we maintain. Then, why does that tag say HCRW-17? A man near the back asked. He wore a ball cap and a jacket with a company logo coffee cup in hand. He jerked his chin toward the weeds where the boundary marker sat. That's county, isn't it? Melinda's smile thinned. We've been told the tag is outdated, she said quickly. We have updated surveys. Then why didn't HOA clarify the boundary before accusing them? The same man said. His voice was calm, but it carried. A few heads turned his way. Melinda's jaw worked for a second. Because they didn't ask permission, she shot back. And I'm not about to let heavy equipment tear up association property without oversight. Heavy equipment. As if the backhoe were some rogue tank that had just rolled in without a driver or a work order. Carter shifted beside me. Feels like I missed the meeting where we got promoted to invading army, he muttered. I kept my eyes on the crowd. There it was, that thin, uncomfortable pause when a story starts to crack around the edges. Some people were still nodding along with her. Others were looking at the untouched path and the sign that said unauthorized and the boundary tag that said county. And their faces had slipped from outrage to uncertainty. I picked up the work order off the tailgate, holding it where my camera and half the crowd could see. The paper rattled a little in my grip, more from the breeze than my hand, at least, that's what I told myself. Folks, I said, this is work order HCRW-17. It's been on the books since last fall. Public records show this stretch floods 6-7 times a year. You've called in complaints about it. We're here to fix that. That's it. Someone near the front said I remember my mailbox getting blocked by water last spring. Exactly, I said. That's what this trench is for. Better drainage. Less standing water around your driveways and that mailbox cluster. Your path stays right where it is. Melinda folded her arms tighter. We'll see what the sheriff says about your records, she replied. This board has every right to protect community assets. We're not backing down because one crew carries a clipboard and a camera. You're not the only ones documenting, I said quietly. Carter's eyes flicked past my shoulder. Boss is here, he murmured. I turned to see Grant's county pickup easing onto the shoulder hazard lights, blinking a slow, steady amber. He stepped out in his usual pressed work shirt, county logo on the chest, sunglasses on, calm as if this were just another inspection. No raised shoulders, no rushed steps. Just the kind of steady presence that makes everyone realize there's an adult in the room. He walked straight to the tailgate, nodded once to me, once to Carter, then took in the sign, the crowd, the path, and the trench in one slow sweep. Morning, he said to no one in particular, and everyone at once. I'm Supervisor Grant with Hawthorne County Roads. Melinda snapped to attention. Good, she said. You can explain why your crew is destroying association property without authorization. Grant didn't flinch. He just reached for the work order, glanced at the number, then looked at the boundary tag, then the untouched path. The quiet stretched for a few seconds, thick as humidity. A low rumble rolled up the road, not from a dump truck this time, but from a sheriff's SUV, turning the corner light bar dark, but presence unmistakable. Grant slid his sunglasses a little higher on his nose. Deputies here, he said, voice flat but firm. Let's settle this in the open. The sheriff's SUV rolled to a stop like someone had hit pause on the whole street. The chatter died. Even the lawnmower down the block sputtered to silence. The only sounds left were the tick of cooling engines and a faint mechanical hum from somewhere overhead. I glanced up and spotted a small drone hovering above the mailboxes, its tiny rotors whirring as it held position someone from the HOA getting extra footage for the next email blast. The deputy stepped out, hat under one arm, radio mic brushing his shoulder. Mid-40s trim, the kind of man who'd seen his share of neighbor disputes and didn't look eager for another. He took in the scene the way Grant had trench-signed crowd path, then walked toward the open space between us. Grant quietly moved to the front of his pickup and set my clipboard on the hood, flattening the permit and work order with one broad hand. "This is going to matter," he said under his breath. I nodded once. "All right," the deputy said, voice carrying just enough to reach the outer ring of residents. "Somebody called this in as a dispute over property. I'm Deputy Collins. We're going to talk one at a time." Melinda was already halfway to him. "Deputy, thank you for coming," she said, slipping into a tone meant for microphones and meetings. "We have a county crew digging up our path without authorization. I've got it all documented." She lifted her phone as if that settled it. He held up a hand. "We'll get there." "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Melinda Cross. I'm president of the Meadow Ridge Estates HOA. He nodded, writing it down. "And you say they're damaging association property?" "Yes," she said. "This path, this verge, it's part of our amenity. They're tearing it up. Residents can't safely use it. They refused to stop when we told them to." He turned his eyes to me. "And you're Hank Mercer," I said. "County Roads. Crew lead." "Your response?" he asked. No accusation, just a clean question left hanging in the hot air. I met his eyes. "We're fixing the community road. That's all we've been doing." I gestured to the trench. "The work order is for drainage improvement on county right-of-way. We haven't touched their path." From somewhere in the crowd, a man muttered, "Path looks fine to me." Collins looked between us then at the sign accusing us of unauthorized digging. "Okay," he said slowly. "Here's how this is going to go. I'm going to look at your permit, then I'm going to look at whatever documentation the association has. Then I'm going to look at the ground. Not the email, not the sign, the ground." Grant stepped forward and tapped the clipboard on the hood. "Permit and work order are right here, Deputy." Collins walked over, leaning slightly to read. The drone hummed overhead, repositioning to get a better angle on all of us around the truck. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. "Be my guest," Grant said. The deputy flipped through the pages, lips moving as he read. "Work Order HCRW 17. Community Road Drainage Improvement, Right-of-Way Maintenance. Approved and signed by County Engineer." He looked up. "This your signature?" "Yes, sir," Grant said. "And your crew mine Grant confirmed. This crew is fixing the community road so folks stop hydroplaning every time it rains." A couple of residents exchanged looks at that. You could tell who'd white-knuckled their steering wheel on this stretch in a storm. Melinda took a step closer. "That doesn't excuse damaging our amenity," she insisted. "We maintain this area. Our dues pay for this slope. They needed HOA approval before they did anything." Collins turned slightly toward her. "Do you have a property survey? Anything that shows this shoulder is within HOA-owned land." "We have our maps," she said. "I can email them to you." "I'd like to see something physical if you've got it," he replied. "Right now, I'm looking at a county-issued permit on a county truck for a county road." "That drone is recording everything," someone whispered behind me. "Good," Carter murmured back. "So is his mic." I felt the weight of the body cam on my chest, the slow blink of its red light like a heartbeat. For the first time all morning, the anger in my chest cooled into something sharper, cleaner. This wasn't just shouting at the edge of a trench anymore. This was going on the record with someone who actually had to care where the lines really were. Collins glanced up at the drone and gave the faintest hint of a smile. "Lot of cameras for one little stretch of road," he said. We didn't ask for the show, I replied. We fix roads, not drama. A couple of the older residents at the back huffed quiet laughs at that. Even the deputy's mouth twitched. He closed the clipboard and handed it back to Grant. All right, he said. I've seen the permit. I've heard the complaint. Now I want to see where this line actually is. That tag's over here, I said, already moving toward the brush. Melinda cut in front of me, heels digging into the grass. Deputy, that marker is old, she said. Our maps. We'll get to your maps, Collins said mildly. But first I'm going to look at what's bolted into the ground. We reached the edge where the mowed grass gave way to weeds. The drone drifted to keep us framed. Collins crouched, pushing the stems aside with 2 careful fingers. The metal tag caught the sunlight just like it had for me that morning. He squinted, tracing the stamped letters with his thumb. Behind us, the crowd leaned in, the whole subdivision holding its breath. The hot air pressed down thick with dust and sprinkler mist, and everyone's opinions waiting to spill. He straightened slowly, brushing off his knee. All right, he said, voice steady, loud enough for the drone and every phone on that sidewalk. Let me read the boundary tag out loud. Deputy Collins brushed the weeds back with one hand and leaned closer, the sun glinting off the metal. Everyone pressed in, residents holding phones, HOA board stiff as fence posts. Grant standing with his arms folded, calm as stone. Collins read it slowly, clearly. No room for interpretation. HCRW 17. County property. A ripple went through the crowd, one sharp inhale. Here. A whispered, Wait, what, there? Someone near the mailboxes said, So, this isn't HOA land, and another answered, Then why'd they send that email? Melinda's face tightened, but she stood frozen, like the words had pinned her in place harder than any complaint ever could. Her eyes darted from the tag to the trench to the untouched path behind her as if she could redraw the world just by looking at it hard enough. I stepped forward a few feet, keeping my hands easy at my sides. The gravel crunched under my boots. Melinda swallowed. So you're just fixing the community road. That's all we've been doing, I said. Quiet, steady. No victory in my tone, just the truth landing where it should have landed hours ago. Deputy Collins pointed his chin toward the concrete path. For the record, he said loudly enough for the drone and every phone out there, the crew has not touched the HOA trail. Not the concrete, not the verge, not the posts. Nothing belonging to the association has been disturbed. A few residents shifted, turning their attention away from me and toward Melinda. It wasn't anger, just a collective disappointment, the kind that settles heavier than yelling ever could. Symbolic, silent, unmistakable. Grant stepped up beside the deputy, offering the clipboard. Not the bent, yanked version from earlier. He had straightened the pages, smoothed the clip, restored its shape like it was part of the job to make things whole again. Collins took it flipped to the permit, then looked straight at Melinda. This document is valid, he said. Their work is authorized. Their jurisdiction is correct. And your path, he pointed, is intact. He turned and held the clipboard out to me. I reached for it, and in that moment it felt heavier, not from paper, but from everything it had survived since sunrise. Prop number 3 restored right there in plain view of the whole neighborhood. As soon as it touched my hands again, the murmur rose behind us. Soft cutting in its own way. Why'd she say it was HOA land? She made it sound like they tore up the trail. I got that email at 7 this morning. Shouldn't she check before calling the sheriff? Melinda's shoulders drew in tight, her gaze fixed anywhere but the crowd. You could almost see her searching for a foothold, a line, a piece of the story that hadn't already collapsed under the daylight. But there wasn't one left. She turned without a word, just a small, sharp pivot, and started walking up the slope toward the path. Her followers didn't move right away. They watched her go, confusion spreading through the group like slow ink. I closed the clipboard against my chest. "Truth doesn't need volume," I said quietly. "Just daylight." The drone hovered above us, catching every second. Melinda didn't look back. By late afternoon, the neighborhood looked different, and not just because of the fresh asphalt. The A-frame sign blaming us for unauthorized digging was gone. In its place, taped to the HOA bulletin board by the mailboxes, was a fresh sheet of paper with the HOA letterhead at the top and a tone that sounded a whole lot smaller than Melinda had a few hours earlier. Carter read it out loud while I checked the tack coat along the edge of the trench. "We misinterpreted county activity involving the community road right-of-way," he said, stumbling slightly over the formal phrasing. "We appreciate residents' patience as the county completes necessary safety improvements." He snorted. "That's one way to say we were wrong." I straightened, wiping the back of my hand across my neck. The sun was sliding down behind the rooftops, turning the steam off the hot asphalt into a hazy shimmer. "Paper's the closest thing you get to an apology in this line of work," I said. "I'll take it." The paver rumbled slowly down the lane, laying the final black ribbon. Carter moved to rake the edges clean, and I walked alongside, watching the slope we'd cut for drainage. The line at HCRW 17 looked sharper now, one side brand new asphalt, dark and smooth, the other side gravel and grass leading up to the concrete trail that had never been touched. A couple of residents stood by their mailboxes watching. No phones out this time. Just arms folded or hands in pockets, the way people stand when they're thinking instead of performing. One woman in a ball cap stepped off her porch carrying a small cooler. She came up to the tailgate where Grant was checking off the last items on the work order. "Y'all want water?" she asked. "It's not fancy, just bottled." Grant smiled. "Ma'am, that's downright fancy at the end of a day like this." She laughed and started handing bottles out. I took one, the plastic cool and slick, in my hand. "Thanks," I said. "Thank you," she replied. "I've lived here 6 years. The corner floods every storm. It scares me every time I pull out." Her gaze drifted to the bulletin board. "Didn't like waking up to that email this morning. Thought you were tearing up our whole front." "We weren't," I said. "Just fixing what the complaint said needed fixing." She nodded, eyes soft. "Glad that deputy came out. Glad you had your papers in order." "Part of the job," I answered. A voice behind her carried more gravel. "'Bout time someone stood up to that committee." I turned to see an older man in a faded flannel and work boots, silver hair tucked under a worn tractor cap. He had the look of someone who'd fought his share of small-town battles and didn't scare easy. He jerked his chin toward the bulletin board. "They've been barking orders at folks for years. Paint this move that can't park your own truck in your own driveway. Most people just roll over." He looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly. "You didn't." I shrugged. "We just did what the permit said." "Yeah," he said, "and you didn't back down when they started waving that title around." Finally, someone fought back. The words landed heavier than the compliment itself. I wasn't a crusader. I was a county road guy who knew how to read a map and a line. But I understood what he meant. It wasn't about the trench. It was about someone telling them no with paperwork instead of volume. I twisted the cap off the bottle and took a long drink. Warm tar, cut grass, and distant charcoal from somebody's early grill-up mixed in the air. Life going on, even with the edge knocked off the HOA's voice. We went back to work. The roller followed the paver heavy drums, pressing the asphalt into a smooth surface. Carter checked the edges for any soft spots. I walked the length of the job again, eyes tracing the slope, the inlets, the way the water would run now. Grant finished with the clipboard and walked to the front of his truck. He pulled a folded yellow sign from the bed, a county one this time, not HOA, and set it near the shoulder where cars would see it as they came around the curve. Community road work. County. Simple. Accurate. No spin. He stepped back, hands on his hips, studying it like it was the final piece of the puzzle. One of the kids from the neighborhood rode past on a bike tires, leaving a faint path in the dust at the road's edge. "Is it gonna flood less now?" he asked, not slowing down. "That's the plan," I called after him. From the mailboxes, someone else asked, "Will the county still finish the job after all?" I glanced at the fresh asphalt at the trench now filled and capped at the tag marked HCRW-17, gleaming just beyond the new edge. "We finish what we start," I said, "especially when there's this much watching." The small group chuckled, and then the sound faded into the steady rumble of the roller making its final pass. Grant came to stand beside me, boots leaving twin imprints in the dusty shoulder. We watched the roller move away the road behind it, looking like a clean slate. "Almost done," he said. "Edge work cones for the night, and we're out of their hair. Until the next flood call," I answered. He tilted his head toward the bulletin board where the new notice fluttered in a light breeze. "Not sure they'll be so quick with the emails next time. Maybe they'll call first," I said. Maybe he allowed. We were quiet for a beat, just the faint hiss of cooling asphalt between us. "Justice doesn't shout," Grant said finally. "It stands." I looked at the road, at the line we'd held, without yelling, without walking off, without letting someone else's story overwrite the permit in my hand. For the first time that day, my shoulders loosened. Grant clapped a hand lightly against my arm. "Almost done," he repeated. "You held the line." By the time the sun slipped behind the tree line, the road looked like it had always been, right smooth, dark finished. The kind of work that didn't ask for thanks, just did its job when the rain came. Carter and I loaded the last cones into the truck bed. The air smelled like warm tar cooling under evening shade, and somewhere down the block a sprinkler hissed to life. A few residents walked their dogs along the sidewalk slower now, like the weight of the morning had burned off with the heat. I stood at the edge of the new asphalt, hands on my hips, watching how the slope carried a trickle of hose water cleanly toward the storm inlet. For the first time all day, the road looked quiet, like a story that had finally told itself. "She finally realized it had never been her path at all," I said under my breath. Behind me, Grant and one of the younger guys were fitting the new signpost into its bracket. The reflective plate caught the last gold light of the evening community road. County maintenance. No drama. No confusion. Just the truth in metal letters. A couple walked past with grocery bags, slowing as they reached me. "Road looks great," the man said. "Thank you," the woman added. Then, another neighbor I'd seen earlier, the one who'd looked embarrassed when the deputy read the boundary tag, stepped over, hands in his jacket pockets. He nodded toward the stretch of asphalt, then toward the mailboxes where the corrected HOA notice still fluttered. "Finally, someone fought back," he said quietly. I felt something settle inside me, the last piece of the day clicking into place. A moment later, he added, half smiling, "And all you did was fix the road." Finally, someone fought back by simply fixing the community road. I answered. The words fit the air just right, light, honest, nothing left to argue with. Grant walked over, brushing dust from his gloves. "Hank," he said, "got a minute before we head out? New guy starts Monday." "Yeah," I said. "Bring him over." A few minutes later, a younger tech, fresh boots, nervous shoulders joined us at the edge of the shoulder. The evening was quiet enough that you could hear birds settling in the pines by the path, the same path that had spent the whole morning being defended from a threat that never existed. I pointed toward the metal boundary marker tucked in the weeds, HCRW-17, catching one last flash of daylight. "See that?" I asked him. He nodded. "That's the line I said. County on one side, HOA on the other." I stepped back so he could see the full stretch of road, the slope, the inlet, the trail untouched behind it. "Remember this, know the line, and you'll know the truth." He looked at the marker like it meant more than just stamped aluminum. Maybe it did. We walked back toward the trucks, the new sign standing firm behind us, the road ready for the next rain, the evening closing in softer than the morning had ever allowed. And for the first time all day, the neighborhood felt quiet in the right way, like something had healed exactly where it had cracked. The last light faded over the trees as I closed the truck bed, the restored clipboard solid under my arm, and the new Community Road, County Maintenance sign catching a clean gleam. The posted order stood like a quiet ceremony of its own, reminding everyone where the line truly was. I realized that fixing the road wasn't just work, it was how the truth finally aired out the morning's noise, steady as water finding the right path. Finally, someone fought back. Justice doesn't need to shout, it stands. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.